Welcome to Psycast. If you've ever wondered why being a good person sometimes hurts more than it helps, this is for you. Maybe no one told you this, but kindness doesn't always lead to connection. Sometimes it isolates you, makes you the one who stays up late thinking about how you might have hurt someone while they sleep just fine. Sometimes goodness feels like a slow unraveling because you give pieces of yourself that no one notices you're losing. Let's be honest. In a world that rewards the sharpest elbows, the loudest voice, the fastest climb, kindness can feel like a liability. You try to do what's right, you try to carry other people gently, but somewhere along the way, you start wondering if the cost is too high, if being kind is just another way to be used, overlooked, hurt. I think Dostoevsky understood that deeply. His characters, especially Prince Mishkin in The Idiot, are painfully good. So good that the world doesn't know what to do with them. It mocks them, misunderstands them, slowly breaks them down. And still, they remain kind. That's the part that breaks me open, because it means something. It means there's a kind of goodness that doesn't survive in the spotlight, a kind that's too honest, too tender, too real to be useful in a society built on performance. And maybe you've felt that. Maybe you've spent years trying to be a good person and ended up exhausted, alone, confused about why it feels like the more good you do, the more invisible you become. You're not imagining it. Because here's what no one says out loud. Goodness costs something, not in a poetic way, in a real, bruised, and sometimes soul-tired way. To be good in a world that isn't built for it is to suffer. But there's something sacred in that suffering. There's something defiant about choosing kindness when cruelty is easier, about showing up with softness when everyone else is armoring up. That kind of goodness, quiet, uncelebrated, sometimes unnoticed, is the kind that changes things, not by force, but by presence. Let me tell you something I once heard. Goodness is not rewarded, but it's remembered. I don't know who said it, but I know it's true. The kind word you said years ago, it might have saved someone. The way you forgave someone who never said sorry, it might have healed a chain of damage that would have kept repeating. But no one sees that. No one claps for that. And maybe that's the point. Maybe real goodness isn't meant to be seen. It's meant to be felt, quietly, like a thread of warmth that stays in someone's life long after you've left it. There's a moment, subtle, almost invisible, when a kind person starts to question their own heart, when they think, maybe I'm the problem, maybe I care too much, maybe the world doesn't work like this, and I'm the fool for trying to love it anyway. I've been there. Maybe you have too. That quiet grief of realizing that the tenderness you offered was met with silence, that your loyalty wasn't mirrored, that your efforts didn't build a bridge, they just left you standing alone on the edge of it. That's the wound no one talks about. Not the pain of being hurt, but the pain of doing good and finding out that good isn't always enough. And still, you keep doing it. You keep showing up for people who wouldn't show up for you. You keep listening deeply, even when no one listens to you. You keep giving softness in a world that keeps asking you to harden. And you wonder, is this strength or just a slow form of self-erasure? This is where psychology and philosophy quietly intersect. Because what Dostoevsky captured in his novels wasn't just a literary tragedy. It was a psychological truth. He knew that goodness often becomes a crucible, that to live with an open heart is to bleed more easily, that to remain kind is to remain vulnerable, and that vulnerability, though beautiful, is rarely safe. Carl Jung said something that stayed with me. The good man is not the harmless man. The good man is the one who is dangerous but chooses to hold his strength. Think about that. We often confuse kindness with weakness, as if being soft means being breakable. But that's not what real kindness is. Real kindness isn't naivety. It's a choice, a fierce, quiet decision to stay human in the face of everything that tries to make you something else. It's the strength to keep your heart open when the world keeps trying to close it. But it's also important to name the cost. Because pretending that goodness is always easy is another way of invalidating the pain of those who carry it. People like you, who feel too much, care too deeply, and walk through life trying to leave it a little better than they found it, even when no one asks them to. You're not weak for feeling drained. You're not broken for needing rest. You're not wrong for wondering whether kindness is worth it when it keeps leaving you empty. You're just human, and you're carrying something heavy, something noble, in a world that doesn't always understand it. That's why so many kind people end up with anxious hearts. They think every silence is their fault. They replay moments, trying to figure out what they could have done differently. They apologize too often, they forgive too quickly, and they forget themselves in the process. But maybe that's where the shift needs to begin. Because real kindness includes you. It's not about becoming a martyr. It's not about being the one who always bends, breaks, and rebuilds without anyone noticing. It's about holding your goodness with boundaries. Loving others without abandoning yourself. Being soft, but not invisible. And I'll tell you something else. The people who hurt you for being good, they weren't rejecting your kindness. They were rejecting their own capacity to receive it. Not everyone is ready to be met with that kind of depth. Not everyone has the stomach for honesty or the courage for closeness. That doesn't mean you should stop, but it does mean you deserve to stop bleeding for people who can't see the value of your wounds. Let me tell you what I've learned, not from books, but from watching people who carry this kind of quiet, weary goodness in their bones. They don't walk into rooms needing attention. They're the ones who stay behind to help clean up, who remember your birthday when no one else does, who ask how you're doing and actually listen to the answer. They're the ones who disappear when they're hurting, not because they want to be alone, but because they don't want to be a burden. They're the ones who give more than they receive, not because they're trying to prove anything, but because that's just who they are. But here's the thing, even they have limits. Even the kindest person has a breaking point. Even the most generous soul can grow tired of being taken for granted. There's only so long you can pour from an empty cup before it shatters in your hands. That's why kindness without boundaries becomes self-destruction. It becomes a quiet form of disappearance. You don't even notice it at first. You're just a little more tired than usual, a little less hopeful, a little more cynical than you want to admit. Until one day, you realize you've become a stranger to your own needs. It's not sustainable, and it's not noble either. Because here's what no one says. Self-sacrifice isn't always a virtue. Sometimes it's a trauma response, a pattern born from years of believing that your worth is tied to how useful or pleasing you are to others. That being good means being small, silent, available, endlessly forgiving. But that's not goodness. That's conditioning. True goodness isn't about losing yourself for others. It's about bringing yourself fully, honestly, fiercely, gently, into every interaction. It's about presence, not performance. There's a quote from Brené Brown that speaks to this beautifully. She says, "Boundaries are the distance at which I can love you and me simultaneously." Read that again. Because too many kind people think they have to choose. Either protect their heart or open it. Either care for others or care for themselves. But that's a false choice. The real task, the harder one, is learning how to do both. To say, I will love you, but I won't let you drain me. I will be there for you, but I won't abandon myself. I will listen, support, and care. But I will also rest, step back, and speak up when I need to. That's not selfishness, that's sustainability. And here's where Dostoevsky's wisdom deepens even further. His novels weren't just about how kindness suffers. They were about how kindness survives, not by being naive, but by being rooted, grounded, aware of the darkness, but refusing to become it. Prince Mishkin, in The Idiot, is often seen as fragile. But what if he's not? What if his refusal to become bitter is the ultimate form of strength? What if he's not broken, but whole in a way that the world has forgotten how to be? That changes everything, because it means that the path of goodness isn't about comfort. It's about clarity, about seeing things as they are, and still choosing to respond with integrity. You're allowed to rest. You're allowed to retreat. You're allowed to protect your light, not because you're weak, but because it's sacred. And maybe that's the quiet truth we need to remember. Goodness isn't something you owe the world. It's something you offer, carefully, consciously, like a gift. Not everyone will know how to receive it, but the right ones will. You can feel it in your chest sometimes. That ache that comes from trying so hard to be good in a place that doesn't always return the favor. You wonder if maybe you're too sensitive, too open, too affected by things that others shrug off. But I want to say something clearly here. That sensitivity is not a flaw. It's proof that you're still alive inside, that the world hasn't hardened you beyond recognition. And that matters, especially now, because we live in a culture that often rewards detachment. We admire the ones who don't flinch, don't feel, don't care, the ones who can cut ties, move on, stay unbothered. But you still care, even when it's inconvenient, even when it hurts, even when it costs you something. That makes you rare. It also makes you tired. So many people are walking around numb, and they think that's peace. But numbness isn't peace. It's a survival strategy, a way of not feeling what's too heavy to carry. You, though, you let yourself feel it, all of it. The sorrow, the tension, the small beauties, the quiet disappointments. And sometimes, that's what sets you apart. Not because you're better, but because you're present. Edith Eger, a Holocaust survivor and brilliant psychologist, once said, "We cannot heal what we don't feel." And maybe that's why your heart hurts more than most, because you're not numbing yourself to the world. You're absorbing it, processing it, trying to live through it with honesty and grace. But here's the truth. I need you to hold close. Feeling deeply doesn't mean you're doing life wrong. It means you're awake. And yes, that hurts. But it also means you're still capable of love, of compassion, of connection. And isn't that the whole point? Because I've seen what happens when good people stop feeling. They don't become stronger. They just become smaller, quieter in the wrong ways, less themselves. They start building walls where there used to be windows. And slowly, they forget who they were before the world told them to be less. But your softness is not a weakness. It's a compass, a way of navigating a world that often forgets what really matters. And if you protect it, not with armor, but with discernment, it becomes your power. You don't have to be available to everyone. You don't have to explain your goodness. You don't have to bleed to prove you care. You just have to remember that your value is not measured by how much you endure. It's measured by how much you remain yourself, even when no one is clapping. That's the kind of kindness that endures. Not loud, not performative, but steady, quiet, anchored, like a candle that refuses to go out, even in the wind. So if you've been feeling broken lately, let me offer you this. Maybe what you're calling broken is actually just your soul refusing to give up its softness. Maybe the cracks are where the light gets out, not where it ends. You are not alone in this, and you are not wrong for being the way you are. So what now? What do you do with this tender, resilient heart of yours? The one that keeps showing up even when it's tired, the one that keeps offering warmth in a world that sometimes feels so cold? Maybe it starts with something very simple. Not easy, but simple. You stop abandoning yourself in the name of love. You stop making kindness something that only flows outward. And instead you start asking, can I offer myself the same gentleness I give to everyone else? Because that's the part we often miss. We think goodness is about pouring ourselves out, but forget that we too need filling, that we too are deserving of kindness, that our inner world needs tending, not just our outer relationships. And it's not selfish, it's sacred. There's a kind of goodness that includes you, a version of love that is not about shrinking or pleasing or disappearing, but about standing in your own light while still reaching toward others. That's what maturity looks like. Not becoming less sensitive, not becoming harder, but becoming whole. You begin to recognize that the people who couldn't meet you where you are, they weren't proof that your love was too much. They were just in a different season. Maybe they weren't ready. Maybe they couldn't receive what you gave. But that's not your failure. That's life. And life is full of people who don't yet know how to see the gold in what's subtle, the strength in what's soft. But there are others, people who will meet your kindness with presence, who will honor your efforts, not drain them, who will see you not as a giver to be used, but as a soul to be cherished. So don't change your essence, but change where you place it. Choose carefully. Let your heart be discerning, not closed, but wise. Let your love be both full and protected. Let your goodness be rooted in reality, not performance. You don't need to prove your worth through exhaustion. You don't need to explain why you feel so much. You don't need to fix what was never broken. Kindness will hurt sometimes. That's true. It will stretch you. It will test you. It will leave you raw. But that doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means it's real. And the world needs that kind of real. So here's the reframe. You are not ruined by kindness. You are refined by it. You are not weaker because you care. You are wiser because you choose to care anyway. And maybe the reason you've been feeling so heavy is because you are carrying something beautiful in a world that has forgotten how to hold it. But I haven't forgotten. And if you're listening to this, maybe you haven't either. So take this as a moment to come home to yourself, to rest in the truth that your softness is strength, that your goodness is not foolish, it is rare, and that staying true to it, even when it hurts, is the bravest thing you'll ever do. You are not alone.